incitement, they're going to play a key role. And we want to express our appreciation, but also convey to you the importance of that mission of defending Israel. And I would like to start just by explaining to everyone here that this is about Western civilization. When we hear the Ayatollah say, death to the great Satan, death to the little Satan, you know, Israel's the little Satan. This is the United States, it's the great Satan. And when we hear death to America, death to Israel, and we have seen the actions that they have taken, and I've seen it firsthand, do not delude yourself about that meeting. In 2006, I was in Haifa during the Second Lebanon War, and I watched those Iranian-made rockets come down into that city. I went down to the trauma hospital. There were 600 victims in that hospital. I know that sometimes people mean what they say. And by way of example, I had a meeting with President Abbas and our delegation. And I asked him in that meeting, because I had gotten a copy of the speech he had given 2 months earlier. I asked him if he meant to say what he had said in that speech on the Iranian-owned station, that the Holocaust did not occur. I told him I had the photographs with me that my father had taken at Dhaka. And he started to back up a little bit. He said, well, regardless of what happened then, it's no excuse for what's going on now. I said, well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Because the words you used in that speech, the incitement you used, was eerily reminiscent of speeches given in the 1930s. And I don't know exactly how Europe got to the point where 6 million Jews were put to death, but I am assuming that that incitement was critical in setting the stage. So my question to you, and this was the dialogue we ran, is how do we end this incitement? How do we prepare the next generation of young Palestinians for peace? And that is the role that the United States is going to have to play in this, my friends, because we have had plenty of opportunity over the last 20 years to insist that the textbooks be the proper textbooks, that the teachers actually teach, that the broadcasting of news be real news, and that is not happening. Now, I've passed legislation or put into appropriations measures to constrict resources for the Palestinian Authority in order to provide an inducement to try to do this. But next month I'm headed to Europe to talk to those in Europe who are most concerned about this and forming a coalition so that in the future the textbooks will be texts that will actually teach. Let's get rid of the propaganda. Let's get rid of the incitement. I will also share with you the imbalance in the reporting that comes out of Israel and why you're so important in all of this. Because when I was in Haifa, I watched the consequences of the BBC reporting and other networks. And I finally picked up some of the shrapnel and went on these shows and showed it and said, why don't you come down to the trauma hospital and interview some of the 600 victims? Because all the reporting was on the counter battery fire. This is why we went into the tunnels recently on another delegation that I led into shortly after the Gaza conflict, in order to show that that tunnel came up underneath the school. And obviously the intent was to take students from that school, elementary school, and pull them back and hold them in Gaza, and force the IDF to fight block by block by block. That's why we held hearings. And I wanted to thank Lee Zeldin for the role he's played in all this. The committee to sit down and brief our members, generals, U.S. generals and admirals, who testified that given the rules of engagement, they couldn't be victorious as Israel was victorious in this struggle. Those rules were so constricted. And what they were conveying to the members of Congress is that that was exactly the intent of Hamas, was to take these children, and to convince also human shields to put themselves up as they were firing rockets. It's important that we convey all of this, but it's also important that we remember that it was Iran that provides the rockets and made the commitment a few months ago, if you read this in the Wall Street Journal, to resupply those rockets and rebuild those tunnels. And it is Iran today that talks about the guided missile capability of giving, what I saw in 06 were dumb rockets. What they want to do is give them precision guided rockets. Lee Zeldin and I are absolutely determined that we not walk away from this commitment, that will not be transferred from Iran. I've watched sanctions after sanctions be lifted and waved and gone around Congress. Well, now is the time for the administration to step up and guarantee us, in no uncertain terms, that there's no way that those precision-guided GPS capabilities are going to be put into those rockets and then fired into Israel. So, I would like to say that on behalf of my committee, Lee Zeldin and other members of my committee, I guarantee we are going to do everything we can to support Israel's qualitative military edge, to give Israel all of the assets they need to try to defend Israel. But I wanted to end by commending all of you for what you're doing in communicating to the wider public. Because as I told you, I saw what the BBC and other networks are doing in their dissemination of propaganda. You're the alternative to that. Continue to do what you're doing to get the truth out, because it's Western civilization that is at risk. Thank you very much.